How big can your company actually get? Should I open a second location or double down on the one that I have? Early on in my business, I had to make the same exact decision. It's one of the biggest turning points in my career. Today, I'm going to share everything that I learned through that experience, and we're going to start with how to figure out your market size. There's multiple ways you can do this, but the easiest thing in 2025 is one, Google. You can use the US Census Bureau, which is another good one. Or you can use ChatGPT to figure out how many homes are actually in your market. So if I just Googled real quick, which I did, there is 27,000 homes in my market. And of which those 27,000, not all of them are going to be serviceable. So the rule of thumb is that 20 to 30% are DIYers. They do it DIYs. They do it themselves. So never going to buy your product. The next is don't care is 10 to 20%. Can't afford it, 15 to 20%. Renters are next. They're 10 to 15%. And then there's rural that are never serviceable. That'll make up an additional 5 to 10%. So that leaves us with roughly 30 to 40% of the 27,000 that are actually serviceable, which in my market, that leaves me with 9,500 homes. So these are the actual numbers that I was using when I had to figure out if I wanted to open up a second location. Not only that, but I also had to decide what my goals were at the time and if my location was big enough for my goals, which they were. So let me take you back and walk you through how I had to go through this. So at this time, I went into pure, probably 3 or 4 years at this point, and all my friends kept growing faster than I could, no matter how many services that I was offering. And at that time, I was doing like lawn maintenance, fertilization, weed control, pest control, storm removal, and some softscaping. But no matter what I was doing, no matter service, I just couldn't keep up because there was obviously way more demand in their market than there was mine. And I was building a company that I hated. So I decided to sell that company, keep the fertilization, weed control, a little bit of pest control that we added. But I also knew that this was the company that I wanted to build in the future. So I took this framework, I built that company up with a fertilization, weed control, and pest control side to where I was hitting these exact numbers. Like I still started to plateau. So I'm doing, 20 to 30% market share at this time. I got a couple of thousand customers in the area. And at that time, no matter what I was trying, it was just costing me more money. That's when I decided like, hey, I need to look at a new market. So the closest biggest market to me was roughly like 250,000 homes, but it was also a 2-hour drive. There were some smaller towns, hour away, 45 minutes away, but they just really weren't worth my time. So I decided to just go after the big market first. And that's kind of when things started to take off and really, really started to explode. You take all those skills that I had, fighting the wrong market, fighting the wrong service level. And I finally found a vehicle to take me where I wanted to go and in a market where I could grow a lot faster. And once I did that, everything changed, light bulb switch. I thought I was a pretty good operator at the time compared to my friends. And I feel like I had a lot of skills. But once I got myself into a new market with more demand, things just really took off from there. So if you're in a similar situation, here are some signs where it's time to change. Number one is your growth has plateaued. Everything that was working in the past isn't quite working. And what I mean by that is like your customer acquisition cost just keeps going up. So your old marketing tactics or all your marketing tactics are all working, but let's just say your customer acquisition cost has always been $100 for your EC numbers, but it started to creep up to 170, 200, and you just can't get it to come down no matter what. And every single platform is the same way, is a really good sign that you've hit market penetration. And then your market share is at a minimum of 10%. In my market, we're roughly 20 to 30% market share in our area. So I knew that it was time for me to expand other places because I had hit all these things exactly what I said. My CAC started to increase quite a bit. My market share was 20 to 30%, and we just kind of stopped growing at the rate that we were used to growing. The important thing here is make sure you have the exact data for all the data that you're going to need so you give the exact answer so you're not going off a gut feeling. So there's really only three things you guys can do from here. And I kind of already talked through them a little bit. I'm gonna go a little bit more in detail. So number one is you can increase your LTV. Well, how do you do that? So let's just say again that your core offer is pest control and you need in your customer acquisition cost about $100, but your LTV is your annual recurring revenue is like $850 from this customer. Well, the next thing you can do to increase the LTV is add services. So that could be mosquito control. You could add rodent. You could add lawn care services. Fertilization, weed control. To increase the LTV of your client, maybe you go from $800 to $1,600. Well, now you just know you went from $807,000 revenue to 1.6. Basically, we doubled the LTV, and now we have a $1.6 million company. You can do that. Number two is you can extend your service area. So maybe every market's a little bit different. So let's just say in my market, if I drive 60 miles, it's going to take me an hour. If I drive 15 miles across town, it's going to take me 15 minutes. For you guys, it might be if you drive 15 miles, it's going to take you an hour. So maybe you purposely shrunk your market so that you didn't have a lot of drive time in there. So option B would be to expand your service area so that you can reach your little bit more customers, right? So instead of, let's say you have 100,000 people, now you can get to 150,000. And option number three is to pack up and move your entire company to a whole new location, which most people don't do. I was one of them because that's what I had to do. Or you start a second location in that same market. But I just give you the same framework, the exact framework, how you open up a second location that can sustain the size business that you want. You want to build a business that you like. You want to make sure you have the customers that you want to work with. So if you have that same customer avatar that's 5 to 800,000 that you like working with, they drive the Porsche, things that we talk about other videos. This is the same exact framework that you're going to use to go build a second company or second branch. So if you have a couple cities that are 27,000, maybe 27,000 or 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, and you have one that's 100,000, that's a little bit further away. I'm probably going to move to the location with 100,000 people so it can support the business that I want to build. And if you guys have already built a business and you're happy with the business that you're in, let's say with 27,000 people and you have 20% market share, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a vision to do something bigger, you're going to have to find a city or cities that you can build the business in. And so if you have a city that's maybe 45 minutes to an hour away that has got 1 million people that can help sustain the business that you have in your dreams to build, then I would pack up and move the company to there. Obviously, I do a little bit more research on what companies are there and things like that. But this is the exact framework how you could choose to go into the next market. So if you're looking for a change, whether that's to double down on the business that you have, or maybe open a second location, or burn your business down and start somewhere else, this is the exact framework that you're going to use to go build your next thing or add on to it. I hope this video is helpful. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to drop them in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.